Hi, it's Phil Kelly. So, I can see myself on the monitor, man. Okay, you guys. I'm going to, we're going to try an experiment this time. And the program name is Interviews of Christian Leaders. Some of my friends couldn't show up, but that's okay. I'm going to make it interesting. And we're trying something new. We're going to make this educational, some kind of education that everybody will like. And it's things that normally you can't learn in school. We're going to do a quick study about the current world economy and what's happening with all the money. And why is our dollar devaluating so fast, where the prices keep raising up and the wages are not raising up at the same rate now as the prices are raising up. So some people are being put in a bind. So here's the deal. We're going to show some slides, and I'll try to explain a little bit about some of these slides. And we'll try to have fun with it. So can you guys put the first slide right now? Let's see. See, that's a cute slide. That is a little guy from the cartoon. And it just says, based on my current rate of income, I estimate a comfortable retirement about 200 years after my death. That doesn't work out. So right now with the rate of inflation, how people plan for retirement, it may not work out exactly as they planned when the money is getting less and less valuable. And we'll discuss a little bit about the history of money. Okay, what's on the next slide? Go ahead and flip it. There. Okay. So we can talk about the history of money, the Federal Reserve, and what that's about. How's it with the worldwide currencies, how they're just printing money like crazy. It's not backed by gold. And just flip to the next slide and see what it says. Now, can you guys see on the monitor that whole slide, or is part of it cut out? Because, yeah, make it so you can see this whole thing, yeah? First, we had gold certificates from 1863 to 1933. And those were certificates with paper money. It was backed by gold. You could go to the bank and give them the paper, and they would give you the gold. And that was the law. That's how it worked up till 1933. Because we had plenty gold and money was backed by gold. You could convert the paper was representing the gold. Now, next slide. That's what a real gold certificate looks like. They have them in different denominations. My friend has one $20 gold certificate. He's a coin collector. And that's pretty neat. Okay, that's what a real gold certificate looks like. And it's, what does it say on the next slide? Does it tell more detail about that? It says on there is gold payable to the bearer on demand. People could walk into the bank with that, and they would give them $500 worth of gold from the bank. Now, what's the next slide say? So now, after 1934, everything changed. Now the money is not backed by gold. It's not redeemable at the bank. It's just paper. And it says payable to the bearer on demand, but it doesn't say what is payable. More paper money is payable. You can get change. That's about it. What does the next one say? So yeah, it's another money substitute. That's another picture. My friend has a $100,000 gold certificate. It's real. It's a real money, but if he takes it to the bank, they will not give him any gold for it. And so I was just talking to him on the phone today. I invited him to come, and he was all tied up. He has a busy schedule, but he has an office down there in town by in Honolulu, near between Karamoku Street and Don Quixote. Okay, and okay, so okay, next slide. What is that one? This is when you can read it. It just says Actually, I can't read it on the monitor because it doesn't, the monitor is too small. It cuts off the edges. But we're going to learn how to do this PowerPoint, so we make our next one next time. Why don't we just flip to the next slide? You guys might have had a chance to read it. Yes, Nixon signed a deal. He said it's temporarily to remove gold being backed by the dollar, and it went from temporary to forever. So now he cut the tie, so gold is no longer backed by, the dollar is no longer backed by gold. Okay, what's the next slide say? So there's where you see the scissors. He cut the tie between the dollar and the gold, and that made all the currencies in the world not backed by gold too. And there's the beginning of runaway inflation. Okay, how's the next slide do it? Fiat money is not backed by a physical commodity. It's just having to do with supply and demand. Okay, next slide. We're buzzing through these because it's educational information. If you guys want to know more, you can see a video, and you can put on the screen the address of this video. And if you click on that address, you'll see a video that explains some of these things. There you go. And I'll read you the website. It's http://carrotgroupsite.com. Proverbs 6 HTML. If you get time, you can read Proverbs 6. That's the whole book of Proverbs. It's awesome, but it talks about wisdom and foolishness in Proverbs. So a lot can be learned from studying Proverbs and Ecclesiastes in the Bible. But anyway, that's a site. You can click on that and you can see one more good educational video, because this PowerPoint here had some videos of people talking, but so far it's set up so we cannot have an audio. Okay, go ahead and flip to the next slide. Here we see the national debt is 5,000 times larger from 1913, and we can study about that. When you see that video from that website, if you wrote it down, it explains more about this. And if you didn't write it down, we'll show it again later. Okay, how's the next slide now? Quantitative easing. There's a nice video with these two guys from Australia talking about what is quantitative easing. It's just a humorous little 30-second video, but we can't play the audio, so we'll skip that one. And what quantitative easing is when countries need more money, they just print it up right out of the printing press, and they distribute it the way they like, and they use the money to operate the government, and that's what's causing our runaway inflation. All the countries just printing money as they need it, and it's not backed by anything. So the volume of money in circulation has gone up extremely high, volume of printing of money in all the different countries in the last few years. So maybe you'll see that graph when you watch that video. Okay, how about the next slide? There's how they just print up money. When they need money, they print it up. The more money they put in circulation, the less money has, the less value the money has. So that's just a picture of the printing press process. Next slide. There, the national debt. See how much it's rising over the years, and see how it's risen so rapidly just in the last few years. From 2010 to 2014, it's 18 trillion plus is the national debt, where it used to be way low in the beginning. And those you see on the graph. I can't read it because of my poor eyesight. How about the next graph? So the Federal Reserve Bank, U.S. perpetual debt machine, because when they print money, the Federal Reserve is not really federal. It's not really a bank. And they just print the money and they loan it to the United States, and we have to pay them for it. Federal Reserve is a corporation owned by bankers. So the wealthy bankers are the ones that make us serve them. The Bible says the borrower is servant to the lender. The Federal Reserve Bank is not a bank, it's not federal, it's a private corporation. They print money, they loan it to us, the government, and the government pays them interest. That's what's causing inflation and etc. Okay, next slide. So redistribution of wealth, there's a little cartoon. It says, what happened to your pot of gold? And he says, Obama redistributed it. So we're talking about here, we're leading up to the cost to run the government. Okay, it'll explain more on the next slide. Go ahead with the next one. Anyway, you can read that. There is 95% income gains since he has become president. And next slide. I hope this shows on the regular TV, because on my monitor the ends are cut off so that we can't read it. But the banks, a lot of the banks are even having a hard time now because of the runaway inflation and the situation of the money. Okay, next slide. You can see how there's a big increase in the cost to run the government with Social Security and Medicare, Medicaid, everything going up way more than before. Okay, next slide. They say the greatest danger is central banks are going to bankrupt the world. The only question is when and how. So we see it happening. And why don't you put up that link to a video so people can look at the video that explains some of these things better than I can explain it. And there's 1 or 2 videos on there that explains it well. And you can leave that website up there with the next slide, okay? Can you put the next slide? Good. So this is interesting. What is the cost to operate the government? Way back in the beginning, they used 3% of all the money earned by everyone to run the government. Later, it went up to 65% of all the money everyone earned in the United States. They used 65% of all that money to run the government. And now it's over 100% of all the money earned goes to run the government. How does the government spend more than 100% of what everybody in the nation is earning to run the government? They do it by printing more money and using that to pay what the cost of all this Social Security increase, welfare increase, Obamacare, food stamps, debit, all that is, they just print more money to do it, because that's why inflation has gone up and the national debt has just skyrocketed in the last few years. Okay, next slide. So they expect the cost to run the government will go up 300% over what people are earning in the nation, which is totally impossible. By 2020, the whole deal will collapse before that happens, because that would be impossible. Seems to me anyway. Next slide. Okay, we were going to play a speech that killed John F. Kennedy. John F. Kennedy wanted to free us from the national debt. If you guys want to see this video, let me know. I can later, if you call my number, you can change that web link from the video and put my phone number, If you guys want to see the speech that killed John F. Kennedy, I don't have it with me right now, but I will tell you. You can see it on YouTube. He gave a speech right before he was assassinated. He wanted to free us from the national debt, and he went back to he put the stuff in the writing in the government and had it pass through, and he started printing our own money instead of having the Federal Reserve print money and loan it to us. So he printed silver certificates. Some people have some of those. But when he started having the United States government printing our own money instead of the Federal Reserve, look what happened. Boom, he got assassinated. You want to find out more about the assassination of Kennedy and what has been released now after all these people that were responsible died? Now they released the truth. Look at Dark Legacies. It's a video. You can see Dark Legacies on Dark Legacies is playing on Netflix. You can also see Dark Legacies on YouTube. Just look it up and it will tell about the speech that killed Kennedy and why he was put to death. And as soon as he was put to death, Lyndon Johnson, who really didn't get along with Kennedy, what they did was Johnson, when he took over, he scrapped Kennedy's whole plan about having the United States print our money and freeing us from the national debt. And he recalled all the money that Kennedy had printed. That's why it's hard to find. You can't even get it anymore. It's silver certificates that they discontinued right after the assassination of Kennedy. By the way, can you guys change that phone number to my phone number? I think that phone number doesn't work, but there's one that says Phil Kelly. That's an old number for my friend. He just called me, and he's coming back to the island. That's the number of Jake Ramsier, but he has a new number now. He's coming back to Hawaii to run a church in June. And so everybody will be happy to see him and his wife, Jake Ramsier and Jen. We interviewed both of them on TV before, and they're awesome. Okay, now, what's the next slide say? And if you guys want more links to some videos, just call me at this number. This is my personal cell phone number, and I can give you the links to some more videos, and I can even help you meet some more people that are studying about what's happening to the economy in these end times, because this is the end times according to the Bible. It's prophesied in the Bible. It says, as it was in the times of Noah, this is how it will be in the end times, where people are more and more evil. And it says, such will be the spread of wickedness that the love of most will grow cold. So you guys got to be careful. Everybody got to be careful. If your love grows cold, anything you do will not really be helpful if you don't have any love. That's something you can learn from the Bible. If you read 1 Corinthians chapter 13, it talks about how important it is to love others, forgive others even if they're not sorry. Forgive them anyway, because why hold a grudge against somebody that's not sorry? You're not hurting them, you're hurting yourself if you hold a grudge. So the Bible says, if you forgive others, God, your Father in heaven, will forgive you. If you do not forgive others, your Father in heaven will not forgive you. So even with the worldwide economy collapsing, everybody having trials and tribulations, the cost of everything going up, and the wages are not going up. We still have some of my friends, they work in the grocery store and everything. They only get $8 an hour. My friend just told me that. He got $8 an hour at the grocery store, and he got laid off too. So that's a shame. Okay, what does the next slide say? They're talking about a big collapse, and derivative contracts is like, it has to do with people selling bonds and everything, and that's another way to create money. You check that video on that website that we put up there, and it'll show you exactly how they create money. Not just the Federal Reserve printing it, but banks create money. And that's amazing to me. It's something I just learned. Yeah, that's the one. That'll show you how the banks create money, and it's amazing. It's something to really try to get a grasp of. It's not what they teach you in school. Okay, so what is the next slide say? The dollar lost its value by 97%. And that means that if you had what you could for example, what you could buy for $3 back in, say, 1946, now it's going to cost you $97 to buy the same thing. That's what it's talking about. It's runaway. I mean, it's inflation, but now it's increasing at a greater rate, a huge accelerated rate, as they print money at a huge accelerated rate for the last few years. All the countries in the world are just printing money like crazy. Okay, the next slide will show more about that. There it is. That is hyperinflation in Germany. They got wheelbarrows worth of money. The kids just play with the money. It has no value. They even use the money to burn, to keep warm, because it lost its value. And you see how fast it did it? Look at those dates. How it compared to the US dollar, it used to be 1-to-1 in that first year. And now, a few months later, it went 4 trillion marks, equaling $1. That's how fast runaway inflation went in Germany. That's amazing. It's unbelievable. Okay, what's the next slide say? There's more runaway inflation money. And next slide. Okay, I think that might be two slides together, but they're starting printing money at higher denominations because it's so worthless. This guy went and bought his lunch, and it cost him so many $1 trillion in money just to buy lunch in Africa. Okay, next slide. So there's how much they print money in Zimbabwe. $100 trillion in one bill, just so they can have money to buy stuff. Okay, next slide. There's Alan Greenspan. Usually this thing has some audio on there about statements of Alan Greenspan before he became head of the Federal Reserve and after. So, next slide. That's just more information about stuff that I can't read very well because the edge of the screen is cut off on this monitor. So I hope you see it better from home. What does the next slide say? This is where Ron Paul is interviewing the head of the Federal Reserve, and he's asking him if gold is money, and the guy says, no, it's not. And so that's just kind of comical. Okay, what does the next slide say? There's more quotes from Alan Greenspan, and you can read what it says, and it's just kind of interesting. How about the next slide? J.P. Morgan in 1912, he said something profound. Gold is money, everything else is credit. And he knew what he was talking about. We should remember him. Okay, next slide. Fiat money loses value. $100,000 in the U.S. in 1932 is now worth how much on the next slide? It'll tell us. Only about $2,000. So what you could buy for $2,000 in 1932 will cost you $100,000 to buy the same thing today. That's how much runaway inflation has gone from then till now. Okay, next slide. Gold holds its value. $100,000 in gold in 1932 is now worth how much money? Next slide. $4.5 million. So you see how gold holds its value. Gold is money. Oh, I can show you something. My wife had bought some gold. Now here's some gold. I can't afford to buy an ounce of gold, but I could afford to buy this. And this is a gram of gold. You can zoom in on it if you want to. And it's just, it has a thing you can scan right here. And it'll tell you, when you scan that with your cell phone, it'll tell you what it's worth in the whole 9 yards. So there you see, right in the center, that little square thing, that's 1 gram of gold. Over 120 countries are using this card, this kind of card for gold. Comes out of Germany. And I'm learning about this. I'm going to meet some of my friends. Even Wednesday night, I'm going to meet them in Capolay, where I live. And they're going to explain a little more. This is the other side of the card. It's the same thing. You see the little, it's real gold in there. So this is money not only backed by gold, the gold is in the money. This costs, it's about $40, $50, or $60. That's what this is worth. And people use it for money. It's certified, guaranteed. The hologram over here will tell you the whole scoop. And if you say you go to a store and you buy gold that's melted down from jewelry and stuff, you want to cash it in, you have to take it to an assayer and cash it in. This kind of money, you don't have to. It's certified. A lot of businesses, even in America, is one of the 120 countries that's starting to use this for money. That's interesting. I'm going to put it down. You can zoom back out now, okay? Okay, I'll put this down, and maybe the picture will look better. And so that's interesting. Okay, what's the next slide say now, as we're going through that slideshow? How do you get the most, go for the best, most gold and the best quality for the least amount of money? Well, that's what we're going to figure out. And I learned about how to do that, and I got some. This is what I can afford. I can buy these $40, $50, or $60 each. And it encouraged me to earn more money so I can have this kind of money that I can spend. This goes up in value instead of down, generally speaking. Okay, do we have any more slides on there? That was the last one. Okay, so I think we're done.